Hey, howdy, hey, and welcome back to the Father's Reflection. And today's episode is not going to be an easy one, but is going to be absolutely necessary. All right, so today's Father for Reflection, give you a little hint. It's going to be about failures, failure to correct, failure to lead in the ways of the Lord. Now, this man was a priest, he was a high priest. He was in the temple of God every day. But with how much he was putting into the temple, he didn't put into his own home. And so the father up for reflection today is none other than Eli. Okay. And this episode is going to be a lot different than what you guys are used to, especially with the ones I've put out in the past. So if we go back to the last episode, this episode is not going to be like Joshua. It's not going to be like Moses. It's not going to be like Aaron. It's not going to have the fire you up and, push you to be stronger and make you want to lead stronger. Eli is going to make you stop and check yourself because his story doesn't scream failure. It whispers it slowly over time through moments where he should have stepped in but didn't. So let me ask you something. Have you ever seen something in your home and you knew it wasn't right, but you didn't say anything? Not because you didn't care, but because you didn't want the conflict from it. You didn't want to start the argument. You didn't want to build the tension in your home. So you just let it slide. Just this once, though, right? You just let it slide this once. And then maybe it happened again and again. And guys, this is where Eli lived. Not in rebellion, not in hatred, but in silence. And that silence ended up costing near everything. So let's dive in and talk about Eli a little bit. So Eli was the high priest. All right. He served in the temple. He was around the presence of God every day, all day. 1 Samuel 1:9 says, Eli the priest sat upon the seat by the post of the temple of the Lord. So he's there. He's present. He's involved in ministry. But again, there's that tension because publicly he was present in God's house. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You're supposed to be present in God's house. You're supposed to be present for the Lord. But that does not mean you need to be absent in your own home. If God has called you into the position to follow him, that means follow him fully. And as a father, that does not mean divulge every hour of every minute into him when his word says, tend to your family. Put God first, but don't be absent in your own home. But for Eli, that's exactly what starts to unfold. And scripture doesn't hide anything on this. 1 Samuel 2:12. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. So how is that? How is it that Eli, being the high priest, his sons were servants of a false god? They knew not the Lord. I would think being sons of a high priest, they would at least know of him, know about him, but they knew not the Lord. So Eli was so devoted in his public image in the temple of the Lord that he failed his sons. They didn't know him. I'm sorry, that's a absolute utter failure. Because while you look high and mighty as the high priest wearing garments, the knots, everything, the gold, the gems, sitting in the seat of the high priest. But you're failing your sons. You're failing your legacy. You're failing your lineage. So let that sink in for a second. His sons did not know God. Not strangers, not outsiders, his sons. His inheritance, his legacy did not know. And as fathers, you need to be listening. This should hit deep. Because the question isn't just, do I know God? It's, does my household know him? Do my children know him? Does my spouse know him? Do I know God? And does my household know him? So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. This is where things really start to get real here. Because Eli wasn't clueless. He knew what was going on with his sons. He knew they were serving another God. And 1 Samuel 2:22 says, now Eli was very old and heard all that his sons did. He heard it. He knew it. He saw the reports and what they were doing. What were they doing? They were taking from the sacrifices. So the children of Israel that would bring their sacrifices to the temple, they were taking a portion of it. They were taking a portion of the cattle. They were taking a portion of the sheep. They were taking a portion of the birds, the chickens, the doves. They were taking a portion of the money. They were taking a portion of the crops that they would grow. They were taking from that. They were abusing their positions as sons of the high priest. And in fact, they were leading people away from God. But here's the thing, Eli does respond. But listen carefully how he responds. 1 Samuel 2:23 and 24. Why do ye such things? Nay, my sons, for it is no good report. That's it. Your grown sons that are doing atrocities against the Lord. No, don't do that. That's bad. We don't do that. That's bad. That's the correction? A conversation. Barely a conversation. I wouldn't even put that as a conversation. That was hardly a warning. I've had more severe warnings from police officers doing a rolling stop at a stop sign. But no action. He didn't remove them from the temple. There were no consequences. Like, at least pay the people back from the portions that you took from their sacrifices, because that was not yours to begin with. That's God alone's. But he said it's bad. He didn't even draw a line in the sand like, yeah, don't do that again. Why are you doing this? This isn't good. This is bad reports. This is reflecting bad. Like, one of the biggest things in the Navy was, go out, have fun for like weekend safety briefs. Go out and have fun. Do not create a bad news article for the Navy. Don't end up in the news as a bad news article. And that's exactly what he was saying. For it is no good report. You guys are not giving me good newspapers. And that's it. He didn't do anything else after that. But fathers, do you find yourselves in the situation where you say something, hey, don't do that. That's not right. We shouldn't be acting like that. But then nothing changes. And deep down, your kids start learning something. Dad might say something, but he's not going to do anything about it. Did you understand me on that? Dad might say something, but he's not going to do anything. Really stepping on the gentle parenting's toes here. Sorry, not a fan of it. Gentle parenting is for gentle kids, and children are not gentle. They need to be guided. So let's be real for a second. And let's just pause here, man to man, father to father, because this is uncomfortable. Sometimes we don't correct because we're tired. Sometimes we don't correct because we don't want to push them away. Sometimes we don't want to correct because we're not even sure how. And sometimes, if we're really honest, we just don't want the fight. And trust me, I get it. I've I've done this too. Understand something, guys. I'm not just preaching up here. I don't identify as a preacher. I don't want to be a preacher. That's not my calling. So don't take my pedestal as a preacher, just preaching at you. I've been through these things. I've done these things. I didn't want the fight. And a lot of arguments that me and my wife have had, I've chosen to walk away from, and it's made it so much worse. Rather than just talking it out, figuring the situation out, and moving on. But because I wanted to walk away because I didn't want to deal with quote unquote the fight, it made it worse. Situations were still unclear, answers were not given. And so now we're just sitting high and dry, pissed off at each other. It doesn't solve anything. But I get the feeling of I don't want the fight because a lot of us fight everything on a daily basis. I almost let the sailor slip out just now. But we're tired of the fight because we constantly feel like we're fighting everything else. We're fighting the world. We're fighting with the tools in our truck. We're fighting with our garden. We're fighting with our cars. We're fighting with work in general. We just feel like everything is a constant fight. So why add just another fight to the mix? We don't want that. We don't want to deal with it. But here's the danger in that mindset and then the concept. What you tolerate today, you teach tomorrow. What you tolerate in front of your children today will teach them tomorrow that it's okay. And Eli didn't just tolerate behavior, he allowed it to grow because he didn't take action, because he didn't snip the situation in the bud when it started. Mind you, he let this go on past knowing the reports. So you know how it says, read the reports, like not good reports, plural. So he's seen more than one report of his children doing these things. So he was known for a while. He was an old man and he knew. But here's where God calls it out. And he steps in. And he doesn't soften it one bit. 1 Samuel 2:29, wherefore honorest thy sons above me? So God asks him, do you honor your sons above me by allowing them to commit these atrocities? For one, in my temple, to my children, you are putting them on a pedestal above me. You, high priest, should be the example to all people. But you pray to me, yet you let your sons do this. You are the speaker of the law, and yet you allow them to do this. And that's the issue. Not just bad behavior, misplaced priority. God says you put your sons above me, and that is heavy. Because in all honesty, Eli probably thought he was just being loving towards them, gentle, understanding, patient. But God saw it differently. God saw it as you are choosing your comfort over my truth. You were choosing non-confrontation over my law. And fathers, I don't want you to get caught in the same trap as Eli did, where we think we're protecting our children by not correcting them. But sometimes we're protecting them from the very correction that would save them. And listen, I am not advocating beating the snot out of your children. You know, there are other ways to correct a child without hitting them. But I'm not excluding that one. A little swat on the butt to get their attention does not kill them. Believe me, a little sore butt is a lot better than a spiritual spanking. Because for one, it's not just going to be them punished, it's going to be you as well. You are responsible for them. But if you want to, do other things higher than the SWAT, go for it. Because the Bible does not say automatically beat them. There's actually other examples on how to handle things. Go read, study, find other ways. But you need to have that consistency of correction. If they are doing wrong, correct. Plain and simple. Because by not doing anything, you could potentially be putting their life in danger in the future. Now, here's a part that a lot of people seem to miss. Samuel is there. He's a young boy at the time, but Samuel is there, watching everything. 1 Samuel 3:1, and the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. So, young boy, I would say he's probably in his teens, early 20s, young for a man at this time, because these people would be living all the way to like 200-300 years old at this time. So he was still considered very young. I would say teens, 20s. But Samuel sees Eli. He sees his sons. He sees what's allowed. And fathers, this is huge. Your children are always learning. Even when you're not teaching, they're watching what you allow, watching what you ignore, watching what you laugh off. We've said this in previous episodes. Children are like sponges. They will soak up every little bit of you that they can. How you talk, how you walk, how you laugh, how you get out of bed in the morning. My daughter mimics me getting off the couch. She makes fun of me. But she has watched me do that so many times. She has now absorbed that, and it's fun. Not so much fun for me, but because I know she's making fun of me. Little stinker butt. But literally, as much of you as they can, they absorb. So whatever you allow, whatever you ignore, whatever you laugh off, push aside, they see that. So this is where it comes probably one of the most sobering verses in this entire story. 1 Samuel 3:13, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. That's it. That sentence now defines his legacy. Because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. Notice how it said, not the sons made themselves, his sons. He still has ownership over them because they are his children, and he did not correct. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you are still under your parents, they are still responsible for you. And say that again. If you are still under your parents, they are still responsible for you. Your children are under your responsibility. So if they go to school and get caught cheating, who do they call? You, because you're responsible for them. If they got caught smoking dope in the bathroom, who are they calling? You, because you're responsible for them. So this is why it's important to teach them the ways that they should go, because they're so little sponges, but they will absorb so stinking much. Now it's a big sponge. And even when you wring out a sponge and you try to clear as much fluid out of it, all the gunk out of it, there's still going to be some in there. So why not put together the right stuff that needs to go into that sponge? That way, when it's time to wring it out, and make room for more stuff to absorb, they still got a good foundation to live off of. But he restrained them not. Not that he didn't love them, not that he didn't speak. He didn't restrain. No boundaries, no intervention, no decisive action. And that's where everything starts to unravel. It gets called out by God, and that's when it unravels. And eventually, it catches up. 1 Samuel 4:11, the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli were slain. And when we talk about ark, we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant here. The Ark of the Covenant was taken, and the two sons of Eli were slain. So the covenant was taken. The promise of God was taken. Remember a couple episodes back, they built this ark as a covenant with God, to mark the covenant with God, and it sat in the temple. And so for the promise of God to be taken, that's huge. They now lost the promise. And in 1 Samuel 4:18, his neck breaks and he dies. So he dies, and it was a tragedy. But not because he was a terrible man, but because he was a passive father. He allowed things that should not have been allowed. So listen, this isn't about guilt. This isn't about beating yourself up, because every father has had moments where we missed it. Every single one of them. I miss things on the daily. I reflect on my daily life every day, and I feel like I miss things. Oh, I missed the opportunity to do this. I should have done this better. You know, we go through situations where we stayed quiet when we should have stepped in. You know, we've been in situations where we'd hope something would fix itself. But this is about awareness. Because Eli's story is a warning of what happens when you don't correct your children, when you don't lead your children, when you don't provide the right structure for your children. But it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to finally say, I'm not going to let silence lead my home anymore. The Bible says in Hebrews 12:6, for whom the Lord loveth, he chastiseth. God corrects because he loves. So when fathers correct, don't do it out of anger. It's protection. It's guidance. It's love in action. Your children don't just need your support. They need leadership. They need your boundaries that you set. And they need the willingness to step in when it's uncomfortable, because they see that. They see you leading when it's uncomfortable. So they'll take that knowledge. So if they are ever in that situation of being uncomfortable, they know how to handle it. So let me ask you again, where have you been quiet when you should have spoken? Where have you been gentle when you needed to be firm? Where have you been hoping something changes instead of leading the change? So, fathers, I want you to reflect on a lot of these questions that I've asked tonight and take them to heart, because I do believe we are nearing the end times, if not in the end times. And the way you raise up your children is going to reflect. If not this generation, the next generation. But things are shifting, things are changing, and children need to be brought up correctly. So, as this is the 9th episode of the Fathers of the Bible series, we are halfway through. And with that being said, this upcoming week, I have a special lesson that's, been on my heart for a while, and to the point where even my wife is calling me out on it. So, a little sneak peek into what is coming next week is guilt and where we are supposed to be in the relationship with God. So, as kind of a halfway episode, this is going to be the subject for next week's episode. So, if you guys are listening, you get a little sneak peek. And then after next week, we are going to kick back off into the second half of the Fathers of the Bible series. All right, we got 9 more episodes of that series to go. So, until then, stay strong, stay faithful. Don't be gentle if it is not needed. Be firm where it is needed. Speak up and lead your home. And continue reflecting on the heart of our Father. Have a good one, everybody. I will see you next week.